All right, should be going now. Lovely. This is episode number 9, I believe, the No Views show. And today we have an absolute gentleman, a scholar of many sorts, fine arts, technical degrees, I believe. We'll get into it a little bit, but longtime friend, former, I guess not roommate, but floor mate back in residence, Mr. Lucas Brown. How are you doing, sir?
Good. Good to talk to you, Alex. There, happy to be on the show.
Yeah,
So
I see you got the got a nice shirt on there, looking pretty
this
pristine
is
here.
this is work casual work attire for me.
Oh,
Just
very nice.
yeah, I like to keep it fresh at the office. Basically, just keep everybody else on their toes, right? So
I mean, if you can't do a good job, you got to look like you're doing a good job.
yeah,
No.
no, it's easy in construction, man. You're just like jeans and like a button up, and they're like, "Wow, you're dressed really nice." It's like, well, I guess. Like,
Thanks. This is from Mark's, actually. It's heavy duty. It's a bit of a cotton down.
What's bad is I actually got that one day. Guy walked by me. He was like, "Are you in like a Mark's ad or something like that?"
What was your reaction? Did you give me a yes or no?
I was just like, "I wouldn't mind. I guess." Yeah. It's
Does that
kind of what
mean
I'm
free
going for.
clothes? Maybe
Yeah.
some work boots? I mean, I wouldn't hate it. Do you know a guy?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's good. It's good, man. Yeah. Yeah. As soon as you told me about what you had going on, I was like, yeah, that seems great. Exactly what you need. Conversations during like tough times. So
It is, and I think that's a perfect place to start because one thing you and I certainly have in common, I would say, is the ability to not only talk for. Oh, this is such a small shop operation. Yes, sir. Huh? Okay, lovely. You always text me. Yeah, no, that's fine. I got things going on here. Yeah, this is an office. Apologize to the listeners at home. I might guess. Close the door, please, sir. Thank you. Cheers.
cheers.
Sorry, there's some mutants that roam the halls here of this beautiful studio in Little Italy. That is the second
Yeah.
family member that just cannot seem to respect the on-air sign, which we don't have, but should be lit up. Uh, we'll get back
Oh,
into it.
that's
I
too
honestly,
good.
I love this. I love this probably more than I love anything in my life right now. Doing these conversations for a plethora of reasons. Um, but to get back into it a little bit there, in terms of these conversations in general, but I know you and I talked about it after our little get together at the range last week, and it's certainly something we have in common in terms of not only having conversations, but I would say having conversations that are beyond the "Hey, how are you?" text, beyond the email communications, and just how important maybe has it been for you, or how has it been in these times, I should say, to try and keep these kind of conversations going.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. I love them. I'm fortunate enough to actually live with somebody that I can just rant at on a regular basis, and she's gotten pretty used to it now. So even if I'm not getting much back from her, sometimes like I'll just talk about something for like an hour, and she's like sitting on her phone, like going, okay, yeah, okay. But it's always good to like get into something with people, and good group of friends that are always willing to banter, and that's what always keeps me going. So
I think
yeah,
there's something satisfying about, we were talking just pre-show, even, mutual friends we have. There's something satisfying about hearing what's on people's mind that are in that circle close to you, because it almost gives you a sense not only of what they're thinking about, but it may also, I guess the way I think about it is, when you used to ask dumb questions in class, like back in
yeah,
university, and
oh
somebody'd
yeah,
say there's no such thing as a dumb question. And I don't know about you, part of me was always like, yes, there is, and don't waste
yeah,
my time. That was always for a select few. On the other
yeah,
hand, when people do ask those questions, somebody else is likely thinking about that same question, whether or not you're ahead or behind or it's relevant. But it seems like there's something satisfying about knowing how other people are thinking, possibly even to gauge where we're thinking.
yeah. No, I agree. I think what I liked is, well, yeah, I've listened to a couple of the other podcasts, and it's you. I have this friend zone. It's yay big, but
Mm-hmm.
just outside of that is this bigger loop, which includes your friends, my friends' friends, who I don't have a direct conversation with. But you expand to that extra circle and you realize, oh yeah, they're dealing with the same thing. Go another one, they're dealing with the same thing. And just to hear someone else that's like same age as you, maybe same kind of entry level position, maybe, and everyone's just talking about the same stuff, right? We're all thinking about it. So it's just like, it's nice jumping in, hearing you talk to somebody and go, okay, yeah, I relate to that. It's just nice to know other people are thinking about it, right?
It is. And that's the biggest thing I've been missing. And I think this also provides a better sense of the humanization aspect, because you and I just as easily could put all of our views out on some sort of social media platform, hammer it out for people to see, and let the chips fall as they may among those who are reading it, those who are consuming it. Yet you may never get into the in-depth conversation about, we talked about last time about you wanting to get a motorbike. Like those aren't going to happen from a 144 character tweet or, a 300 word Facebook post. You're going to need to treat these people or give these people the same amount of energy that you expect back.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to tell people that I genuinely want to tell. Like,
yes.
I don't need to tell 2,000 people saying, hey, get in a bike, because who's going to comment? The 5 to 10 people that I probably would have told in person, right? So
and people who like
I think
bikes.
I've just I've just changed my viewpoint to trying to be a little more private on most of my dealings, especially with social media. Because people don't need to see all that stuff. Like, it's so much nicer to share like a nice moment with somebody than to share like some random thing. No, I still do post.
Yes.
Right? Like, don't get me wrong. We're 26 years old.
We're immersed in
that. That's it's almost become part of our lifestyle now that you have to do it to some extent.
Yes.
And I don't know, is that the wrong way to say it? You have to do it.
You know what? It's interesting that
we want to.
It's almost scary that you keyed in on it. And it was exactly what I was thinking, where it just reminded, I can't remember if I mentioned this before, but I had this professor back in university who he actually, and this is just popping back into my head. So it was an educational psychology class. This is when I first got into school and I thought I wanted to be a teacher. And he said, it might have been, I think it was October. He said, I will give anybody like a minimum of 3%, up to 5%, if you can go a month without your phone and write me a 10-page report on what you learned. And that kind of quizzical look you have, it almost looks like you go ahead and tell me how you would respond to that if you were back in class.
I would just say that I'd probably be able to get that 3 to 5% by just doing a good job in the class, right? Like, instead of trying to gain that by doing something and losing that piece, I'm like, well, I'm already here to learn the class, so I'll just do that instead.
No, and I agree. Thing. Yeah, no, for sure.
We're attached to our phones, man. It's crazy.
It is incredibly strange that we have this device that seems to record. I actually just clicked on my screen time today, and I did not realize as a part of screen time was your pickups. It's the amount of times you pick up your phone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was my reaction as well. And at about, I want to say, I realized this about 4:30 when I got back, did a little grocery run. 51 times today I've already picked up my phone, I guess, at what would be a individual point or a unique pickup point, if that even makes sense.
So
go ahead.
It's just recognizing your movement. Like,
no,
it doesn't have to look at your face or identify.
Just when the screen, right? I think when the screen pops up, like when it illuminates. I could be wrong, and I'm a bit of a moron. Between the two of us, we might, be able to figure out this technology as we were talking about a few technical issues pre-show.
You've talked about screen time with a couple of your other guests, and I've actually never done it. I've never checked it, never tracked it. I have no desire to know. I just don't want to.
Because you think you're... Go ahead.
I don't.
Like, you think you're at a good spot, or just...
I don't think I abuse it. I just don't want to be tracking another thing that I'm doing on technology.
Yeah. Oh,
like, okay. I got to track my emails. I got to track my calendar. I got to look at all these things all the time. I'm like, now what? I'm going to add in another routine where I'm paying attention to my screen time. I got to keep track of that and go, okay, you're up 5%, you're down 5%. And it's like,
No, it's
now
true.
it's just another aspect of my life that I'm doing. I'm like, oh, I just don't even want to know.
You ever think about all this data that we attract on ourselves and never use? You ever think about that?
No.
No? You see, and that's so here's this.
I've never thought about that. Like,
what? No, this is perfect. This is so good to have you on. It's so refreshing to have somebody who's not as plugged in, or like I don't even feel. I feel I'm very good at recognizing when I've been on it too much or when I'm per se abusing it.
Yeah.
However, I just thought about it today. I got a smartwatch for when I go running, when I go biking, and everything gets uploaded onto Strava and everything's up there. And then I think to myself, who's this for if I never do anything? People are going to know my exact routes on a Tuesday. I can tell you right now, biking at 9 degrees is miserable, but got a couple hills in, smashed a Red Bull, felt like an absolute champion out there. And then I thought, and I'm sending this to nobody except another social media platform that's going to tell people what I did today.
Yeah.
And from a baseline view, if you're not looking, I could look at my heart rate, I could look at my kilometers per hour, I could look at my calories, I could look at all these things. But that's all, again, if I stop exercising tomorrow, who cares? If I start eating like an absolute savage today, who cares? Like, why do we?
You don't have to post that anywhere. Like, you can just track that and store it on your device.
I know, but those miles, those calories are all going to count, even if I didn't have the watch,
Oh, yeah.
Like, are we becoming a product of the products, or
how many times do you hear somebody go, oh, yeah, getting in my steps today?
Oh, I just want to peel my skin off. Right? I can't stand that.
Everywhere you go, well, we're really getting in our steps today. Yes, we
are. Every vacation.
It's like, now, like, it's become this thing that you have to talk about because, we're tracking it. We might as well talk about it.
It is. Even on your phone. Because you can't escape it.
I don't do any of it. I go for a run.
But I bet you got an iPhone. What kind of phone do you have?
I got an iPhone. But
I bet your steps are on there.
I'll do a quick plan my route and just go, okay, like, I'm not going to die on this one, right? Like, I'll make it back home. And that's it. I don't look at how many steps it was. I don't get like an exact kilometer count. I'm like, hey, I left around 5:52.
Yeah.
Came back at this time. Like, it doesn't really matter to me, right?
No, that's brilliant. I love that. No, I do.
Really it's. I'm like, I know that I did it. So
I know, and that's the thing. But I think if there's an overlying question with all the episodes, and I've yet to figure it out entirely, if there's some sort of thesis for this show, it's almost what is your balance with technology and your everyday life? And not only that, if there was a follow-up, it is having to do with the times of COVID and figuring out how to deal with people in public and deal with people in private and escaping those hurdles. But I don't know, I find myself sometimes a little too plugged in and maybe following along with too many of these metrics when that's exactly it. I could just say, you know what? I'm not wearing my watch today. Like, don't need to take any photos of my bike ride. I'm just going to go. Like, I'm just going to go. But then also there's that little voice in the back of your head. It's like, well, what happens if you crash? What happens if you need to call somebody? What happens if somebody died? Like, all these things go through your head. And then you think, well, okay, but I'm going to escape these things. I want to escape these things. Like, it seems hard day to day.
See, I get the security part of it.
Yes.
Like, I get that. Have it on you so that, because I've seen how, like, the Apple will do the crash things now, right? And send out an emergency, like, I'd say
hello, OnStar.
Like, I do like that. That makes sense to me. So, but just because you have it on doesn't mean you got to be using it for anything else, right? It can still track your heart rate.
It's true, but it's true, but it's almost like it doesn't come without, like, it's so advanced that it's why. Here's another one I love. People always talk about, I'm going to get a flip phone. I'm going to get a flip phone. First of all, shut the fuck up. You're not going to get a flip phone. Okay. The second you go to try and take a photo, a video, or realize that there's buttons there and you forgot how to text in T9 Word, you're going to throw that thing into the deepest river you can find. Okay, what you
That
want,
doesn't tell you how to spell a word correctly.
you
What?
know, these guys think they're gonna pick up a brand new razor, and all of a sudden people are gonna stop bothering them, and social media is gonna have no longer
I'm
have an effect
actually
on them.
like, I'm scared to not have spell check. Like, if you took it away from me, like, I know I can spell, but like, there'd be definitely some words that I screw up on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Like, and that's crazy. It's just because, think about it, we've
Well,
had
we're
it
used to it,
ever
right?
since grade school. Like, and I
Hmm.
mean like elementary grade school. Like, we've had
And
it.
it just keeps
Like,
learning to the point where it gets better
so
and better.
and so to take this another way, I've also been thinking a lot about my memory lately
Yes,
too, and it's just
I like where
not
this is
there as
going.
much, right? So just as much as I rely on spell check, I rely on photos to remember
Yes.
things, text messages, conversations, like something that I'm looking at, a visual thing that cues me to
Hmm.
go, oh yeah, yeah. Because if I see a photo, I'm like, oh, that was this trip. It was probably around this time. I was with these people, and I can start thinking about what I did on
Yes.
that trip.
Yes.
But if I don't have that, like, it's not there. Whereas I know my brother, like, guy has a crazy memory. Like, I don't know how. I just didn't get it. But I don't know. I just think that's an interesting thing I was thinking about the other
No,
day.
genetic. I
Oh,
mean,
jeez.
if you compare me and my brother, I would say I haven't forgotten a thing since like grade 8, and this guy doesn't remember anything.
Yeah.
It is
But
though,
yeah,
and
that's just another thing that we use our technology for,
well, I
and
kind of want to
another
stay on
thing we
that for a
rely on.
second and ask you a few questions on that, because somebody said to me once, your phone is like your brain,
Yeah,
right? And that's exactly it, because you don't need to have the physical capacity to remember every Mexico trip, every summer vacation, every time you went somewhere. And you're right that all it takes is one photo that you see and you go, is that me?
yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that was like that concert in Calgary 3 years ago. Oh, were we at Stampede? That was us. And
yeah.
it's so strange because yeah, if you go back to like, our parents' days, you straight up had to remember it
They
or
remember
have it like a
everything,
physical photo.
everything, right? And if you didn't keep some copy of it filed away somewhere, it was gone. Like, you had no
Yes.
record. Good
Forever.
luck. It's done, right? I can remember some of my like childhood friends, like phone numbers, like and stuff like that. But you ask me what your phone number is? No way.
Oh,
Like,
not a
I don't
clue.
know it, right? Like, it's just things have changed, right?
Well, and
But
even
it's
on that
amazing.
point,
It is
it is
amazing.
it is, but even on that point, not only do I not have to remember your number, I have you on Facebook, I have you on Twitter, I have you on LinkedIn, I have you
Oh
on
God.
Snapchat, I have you
Oh
like it would
jeez.
be impossible, even if I didn't have your phone number, to not try and contact you.
Yeah.
Like add your email to that list as
You're
today.
gonna get a hold of me at some point.
Right? Right? See,
One
and
of them
that's
I'm gonna see, and I'm gonna see it within the next
have to.
5 to 30 minutes. Like, if you bomb me on every single one of those, I would see it, right? So, and that's where we're at, right?
Be like,
You
I
are
have a lot of
totally,
notifications.
yeah, exactly. You can always be contacted at any moment now.
It's so
Yeah.
strange. Like earlier this summer, my dad and I, this might have been May, I think. Was it this summer? Must have been this summer. No, it would have been last summer actually, because there was no masks. So
Mm.
this was like, it probably actually would have been right around this time last year. It was like a nice September day, just enough sunlight. It was like 5 o'clock. Like, hey, let's go downtown, grab a drink, go to Sherlock Holmes, whatever, and go to the pub. I locked the door and then I asked him, do you have your phone? He says no. He says, do you have your phone? I said no. And we looked at each other and we said, all right, let's
All
go.
right.
you
Yeah.
know, because nobody, the last thing I said to him was we started walking was worst case scenario, family member dies. We don't hear about it for another 3 hours.
Yeah.
But God forbid we ruin our supper, because I've
Yeah.
talked about it. And if you've listened to, I think it was on the Zach episode where I said, how instantaneous does this world need to be? How
Yeah.
quickly
I
do
remember that.
we,
Yeah.
how quickly do the Beirut explosions need to be reported? Do the protests in cities, do things need to be on top of, because we're just being fed and fed and fed information until you could stay up all day and consume it if you wanted to.
Which, yeah, we do at some points. Like, especially when this first broke out, like, I was consuming a lot. trying to keep up on everything that was going on out there.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you actually wanted to look for it at this point.
Well, you feel like
Because
you had to at the start.
Yes, because none of it really made sense. We knew nothing, which, right, makes it
It's
really
weird for us.
difficult. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, so now you have to trust what you're getting. And it's like, no, I don't, right? So now you start looking extra hard because you have to question everything that you find. Isn't it insane? Like you look at an article. I can't tell anybody about that article until I've looked up debunk. Like, has anyone debunked this article? Because the first thing that someone's going to say back to me is like, oh, that's false. Like, look at this. And it's like, oh shit, right? Like I look like an idiot. Right? Like here I thought I caught some
It's gonna help.
great news that like everyone needed to know. And then it's like, no, it's gone. But then at the same point, who trusts that guy?
Yes.
What he's telling me.
Yes.
So I've come to a point where I'm so hesitant on everything. Like I don't trust anything that I read, which is really difficult for our generation.
But that's where our generation's at, because it used to be.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to go into saying that, the other generation, like the older generations, like they actually discussed everything properly, and you didn't have to worry about everybody having a voice and someone being able to just write like a false article, right? Like nobody had time back then to do all that, but now it's
or the network.
You just blow it up and right, and
it's
they
almost
want to. It's money behind it too. There's
that's the
money
thing.
and corporations behind making sure that narrative doesn't go through, and that's what's bad.
Well, it's almost as if people are starting to realize if there was another currency that we have not yet understood, it's the currency of information. Because it almost feels as if there's, at the end of the day, with every story, there's the facts. There's the undeniable, whether you want to call it truth or not, there are facts that whether one person was there or two people were there or 200 people were there, in some way, shape, or form, the truth is there. It's almost as if we take that little center and then, okay, Luke's going to write an article about it. I'm going to write an article about it. My brother's going to write an article about it. My dad's going to write an article about it. And you're going to write it from constructionworks.com about, the city expansion. I'm going to write about it from the financial side of things. Jack's going to write about it in the mechanics and the engineering. And my dad's going to write about it for urban planning. Okay, great. That's one layer. And maybe depending on who you are, you can go read one of those articles. But then somebody's going to jump on top of us. And somebody who is like green, environmental friendly, wehateconstruction.com is going to write a counter article to your article.
Here she comes.
Right. Meanwhile, on mine, it'll be like, say I'm I don't even know a proper, I'm a Keynesian economic person who just absolutely love it. But there's some sort of Luddite, pseudo neoliberal person who's going to jump on top of my article, write a counter rebuttal, whether or not anybody's using the facts. And then that's just going to multiply and multiply and multiply until, I mean, this is perfect. I was on my bike ride literally yesterday, if not 2 days ago, and this guy passes by me. I'd come to a point where I was on top of a grass knoll, and then the drop off was on like a concrete pathway. Didn't know it was there. So I stopped, turned, made eye contact with this guy who had just a handful of pickets. And he said, "Hey man, how's it going?" I said, "Good, how you doing?" And he said, "You heard about Bill 10? I'm like, here we go. Here we go. I haven't, but I'm about to. And I'm the kind of person who loves information. So I said, "Tell me about Bill 10. And I got the time. Guy starts rattling off the emergency, not the emergency, because I don't want to butcher it. But apparently Bill 10 is a provincial bill in this beautiful province. It's like the Public Safeties Measures Act, but it was the emergency amendments to the point where like what is enforceable. And this guy's stance was essentially they can't make masks mandatory because you can't infringe on people's right to choose. Yeah. And again, you and I had this conversation last week or something similar. I said, I agree with you because we should never infringe on people's right to choose. However, it's such a simple approach and it becomes so incredibly complicated. And if there's a way to tie this entire point together, it seems we end up in one of two spots. We either do the proper thing where we read the CTV write-up, We read the document itself. We watch maybe a video on it. Then we go to CNN. Like we check a few different sources, and then we go, okay, I'm pretty sure this is what happened.
Yeah,
But that takes time.
Yeah. From there, you make your own judgment on what you just took in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's good to have your own opinion, and it's good to stretch what you think on what they said.
Yes.
But as soon as you start saying all that, like now you can be right. Someone's going to have a different opinion on you, and you have to be okay with that.
Yes.
And we've just hit this point where no one is okay with the other side's opinion, right?
It's almost as if everything's trying to be black and white.
I know.
And the world is not black and white.
Yeah.
I bet you if you go back to and you recorded, let's say me, you, we'll just say some of our floor mates. We'll say we don't want to sue anybody on live television.
Yeah.
Let's say we went back to 2014. Beautiful year. Knoxville's been open for a couple of years. Ranch was still in full swing. We were probably partying at Hudson still. We were everywhere. If you went back to some of those drunken nights, or just even those nights in general, and listen to some of the conversations we probably had, drunk out of our mind or not, or whatever substances we may or may not have been on, and recorded those conversations, you would get a very different view of who we are as people versus if you met us on Sunday morning at your parents' dinner table. Or
Actually, that's pretty funny too, because I have to pick like what I say to different people, and I think it's pathetic. Like honestly,
it's twofold.
I don't like it. Like,
why don't you like
people, it? If you're close with me, I'll just be straight open. Like I don't care, because ultimately I know these people like me because of who I am. Right. As soon as I go outside of that, say like somebody at work, like I'm super careful about what I say, because you don't want to step over some line where somebody might report you for what you said, and that's where we're at. Like,
do you think people have an issue
for everything now?
It seems so. And do you think people have an issue? I had a great conversation with my older sister about this actually in person. Do you think people are hesitant to come, say it was you at work and you pissed somebody off, or somebody had a bit of a, I don't know, they didn't like you. You said something to them that, even though from your perspective had no intent, was not even ill-advised, maybe potentially borderline, but not even close. Do you think people have an issue coming back up to you, Lucas Brown, and saying, hey, man, I didn't appreciate how you went about that, or I didn't like that, because they have that option to just go around you and go to whoever's above you, or if there's an HR department, and just say, hey, here's what he said, and I don't like it.
Yeah. I'm okay with any of it as long as HR comes to me and say, like, what did you say? What happened? As long as they take my side as well, and I go, here's what I said. Like, I'm allowed to say this. I'm allowed to have my own opinions. I understand that person might disagree with my opinion, but what I said is what I said. I don't disagree with my viewpoint on this subject.
Yes.
Right. And ultimately, say this was my company.
Yeah.
Right. Let's use that viewpoint. So with everything going on out there right now, right? If I said something against a certain political movement, narrative, whatever is going on out there, and my company decides that I shouldn't be able to work for them because I'm on this side of the narrative, we're no longer in a democracy.
I agree.
That is not correct, right?
It gets scary. I mean, go ahead.
On top of that, the company shouldn't have a side either. And right now, what we've done in society is we've come forward and we've said every company needs to make a stance on these political narratives. And it's insane. It's like this person just created a company to do this business. It doesn't matter what the CEO's viewpoint is on some matter. Is this company doing ethical business?
Yes.
That's it. That's all that matters.
But it's true, but it seems
as long as he's treating his employees properly and there's proper programs and procedures to deal with any sort of situation. Sure, if you say a hate crime to somebody, yes, like you're gonna get fired, right? But if you just say that here's where I stand on a matter that's going on in our world, in our country, like you can't fire somebody for something like that. But we've taken that away. Anybody can get
I
fired
agree.
for anything now. So what has happened is that anybody that has a strong viewpoint against the majority, what is it, majority like owner of
Majority
the narrative,
works just on its own,
right? Like they don't say anything. Like I don't say anything about anything on social media or anything because I'm not dumb. Right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not dumb. I'm like, well, somebody out there could potentially call for canceling my job. So it's like, what's the point? So what you're seeing is a vast majority of people not share their viewpoint because they're scared, because you've told them that basically they're not allowed. And that is a crazy point in society.
It is, and there's a lot of that I agree with. What I think, and maybe this is certainly a new thought even for me. It's almost as if we're questioning the wrong things when it comes to corporations, because we'll question exactly that. What is Nike's stance on, let's say, child trafficking? Let's use a completely egregious example. Well, I would bet you Nike's stance, I would bet my life that it's not pro child trafficking. I would put a lot of money on that.
Let's hope, right? Like I think it's reasonable to believe that we got that one right.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 1 for 1. I'm gonna go on a limb here. Now, moving forward from that, 2 things come to mind. You have to assume that people are good until they're bad. That's what we've always wanted, right? So it's almost like we shouldn't be questioning what their views are on a lot of these stances, political or not. If it has to do with society or it has to do with not hurting people, I would say the majority of companies and corporations all have some initiative, especially community initiatives at those companies like a Nike that's at such a large level. However, I would bet you, though, at the same time that working conditions in Chinese factories aren't exactly up to snuff. Yet, how comfy is a pair of Nike Zoom Pegasus? I don't know. You tell me. So it's the same people. I made this example to you. It's the same people on social media who, and this is probably where I'll end up getting fired at some point when somebody discovers this, is the consistency of delivery is the essential of marketing. That's from David Godine. I hope I said his name properly. That's not my thought. So when I look at social media and I look at people taking stances, if on Monday you're telling me to save, stray dogs in Edmonton, Tuesday is a photo of you and your weekend trip, that's great. Wednesday is a photo of one of your friends' birthdays, awesome. On Friday, you're telling me about the makeup remover that, they tested on animals and why we shouldn't use that. All that's great. But then on Saturday, I got a 12-hour long story of you and your friends getting absolutely banged up for 36 hours straight on a 2-day bender, absolutely giving her. I think to myself, yeah, that's great, and I appreciate your views. Yet, what are you doing? Are you voting with your dollars? Are you choosing what companies you support? Are you actually moving the change needle in the direction you want to? Or are you simply doing what everybody else is doing, getting on the soapbox and just shouting about what you think you care about or what you genuinely care about?
Yeah. I think you're right about actually wanting to see what people are going to do to make a difference. I think you kind of mentioned it last time we were hanging out there too. It's like, if you're going to talk, like walk, right?
Yes.
So
and it doesn't have to be a lot.
I definitely get that. Yeah, I definitely get that for sure.
I think we just want to see the effort is what we want to see, because it takes 0.8 seconds to share something. Oh, I like this. Share it. Boom. Done. It's out in the atmosphere. But that's great. But then exactly that. Who cares?
Who cares?
Yet I've donated to countless campaigns, even as minimum as $5, to somebody who just shows me like, hey, I'm out here on the front lines, like digging ditches in remote communities. Like, I'm out here. Like, what's up? And you're like, okay, no, you have an opinion for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess if there's
Yeah.
I kind of want to ask you a little bit to carry on, and I know I've spent a lot of time hammering this out with a lot of different guests, but if there was maybe a place or a time or even a feeling you could go back to let's just rewind the clock. It's January 31st, or sorry, not January 31st, December 31st, 2019, and let's say it's noon. You get the day off, and you're thinking, all right, life's pretty good. Things are going well. It's wrapped up the holiday season. And you had this epiphany that 2020 was going to happen. And you were just in, like, say, mid May. And you just had this horrific idea, like, that's actually what life's going to look like. Where would you go back in time, or what do you miss that you can't do right now that you would just love to do? Like, if you'd have one day to yourself or one day to do something, just open her all up, what would you do?
Uh, I'd have to go see my brother. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Where's
Yeah.
he?
He moved in February to Texas.
Damn.
So,
In February too.
like, if you were to tell me that, right, on December 31st, that you got 2 months to hang out with your brother and then you aren't going to see him for a year,
Yeah.
right? Right. I was like, yeah, I'd probably just hang out with him, do something, chill out.
No,
I think that's like one of the hard things is seeing what he's like going through down there
mhm.
and goes down there. Like he barely got his stuff into his house to go to the grocery store and hope that the shelves weren't like empty. Right. And then it's like, pack it up, head indoors. And
Jeez.
there it is. You're stuck in this house. You don't know anybody down there. You haven't met any of your
Brand new.
neighbors. And I was
Oh.
just like you, like I think I'm going through a lot, like starting like a brand new position. Well, not
Mhm.
brand new, like a higher
Yes.
position in his
Yes.
company, like moving down there, and then dealing with all that shit. Like holy.
But that's exactly
So
it, like
I feel
adapting
for
on the
him.
fly.
Yeah. So if I could do something, I'd probably just hang out with him. But honestly, like it hasn't been that bad, Alex. Like
No,
it's
it's not even
up
the
and
the
up until recently when a couple of things have come up like in my life, I was
Yes.
telling people, I was like, this has been the best year of my life.
Really?
Like it with all the bullshit around,
Yes.
like I was hitting so many milestones in
Let's
my life
go.
that it's like it was hard to see like other
Hard to
people
lose,
be
baby.
like
Hard to lose.
really negative, and it was just coincidence. It was just timing of when I was finishing things
Mhm.
that I'd been working towards for years. That all of a sudden it was just like boom, 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 right? I got engaged, finished school, got a job, hit my career running, moved into a house. Like it was just like all these things happened. And then it's like, well, sure, like there's a lot of bullshit going on in the world, but like it hasn't stopped me from
Yes.
continuing on my milestone like markers that I'm
Yes.
hitting. And
How much of
ultimately
that do you
we're
think?
gonna we're gonna keep hitting them. Like you're gonna keep hitting them. I'm gonna keep hitting
Yes.
them. Like even though everything's going on, the world has not
Yes.
stopped at all.
Yeah.
And there's still so much good going on, right? Like
See, and that's
yeah.
that's exactly it though. But that's the perspective people need to hear. And it wasn't even that I wanted to touch on the bad, because I'll answer my own question in a second. Because I want to ask you one more. How much do you think perspective plays a role though in your life to be able to recognize, yes, let's eliminate the excess, eliminate the bullshit, and just go, hey, this
Yeah.
this is fine.
Yeah. Like so I was fortunate enough to like go through like my harder times before all this hit.
Hmm.
So I feel for the people that maybe hadn't went through anything difficult. And
Yeah.
obviously like everybody's going through stuff difficult.
Yes. Yes.
But like I would say that I was like at a one of the lower points of my life where you're like, okay, it's time to twist things around, right? Figure out what I'm doing wrong and change it into like good things and start moving
Yep.
forward, right? And I got to do that before all this hit. So there's people that like are going to deal with failures during this, and they're going to have to learn twice as hard as I did,
Yeah.
right? Because I look back, I'm like, yeah, okay, like I failed at this, whatever. I had to learn what failure felt like for the first time. But
Sucks.
I gotta, oh, it's brutal, man, right? It's brutal,
every
right?
time, every time.
But it's something that 100% everybody needs to learn.
Yes.
So if for some people this is their not necessarily a failure, but this is like a hard time, this
Yes.
is good for everybody to learn how to deal with. Because we got to know
It
how
is.
to push through hard times. Because these are
Yes.
not hard times. There's millions of people that died in wars. Like we're
Yes.
dealing with technology and staying inside. Like these aren't really hard times. Like they're
No, I
difficult,
agree.
but we're moving forward. And if the one thing that comes out of this is that everybody has a little more grit behind them, like we're gonna see great things come out of this generation, right? Because
I agree.
we're gonna strap everybody on the back.
Yes.
We got to take everybody up and show everyone above us what we can do to help get us out of everything that's happened lately,
Yes.
right?
It
And
is.
I think it's something that we should be proud of. Like
I agree.
I don't like being put in the situation,
No, we
right?
just got to go through it.
I don't like looking at my country being what $340 billion deficit and going, hey, good chance I will never see our country get out of debt. And that's whatever. Like I don't wish we were there, but it's there, it's done, and
Yep.
it's time to start working away at it, just like
Yes.
that, right? So I think we'll learn a lot from everything that happened. And I don't know if that was there a question?
It doesn't matter because
I don't even know,
the
man.
response was
Like,
perfect. That's all that
yeah,
matters. Because
yeah.
I think
What do
that's
you
one
do?
thing.
You
Pardon
must
me.
think about that stuff, hey? You're a pretty positive guy lately.
It is. It's separating the short term and the long term, right? So, for example, I haven't got up pre 7 o'clock in weeks, and it's mostly because there's no desire to. I don't really have to start till 8:30. My office is right here. Everything's in line. And then I thought, 2 years ago I used to get up just to try it. I got up at 5:30 for like 2 months straight, and I said I'll get up, I'll make a coffee, and I just like for the first half an hour to an hour, don't be on your phone. Like
Mm,
either taking some news on TV or like something that you used to on cable television, or read and plan out your day. Like one of those three things, but don't just get buried playing solitaire for half an hour just to tell yourself you got up at 5:30. Try and be productive. So I got up this morning, had a great little morning. Like got up to date on the cycling news I was trying to follow along with. Tidied up some emails, did insurance illustrate. Like just all of a sudden, that hour earlier I was up, everything was that much cleaner, that much more in order. I was already thinking about this. So day to day in the short term, it's very hard because if you're a bit of a slave to your emotions, it's very easy to ride the highs and lows
mm,
where great days feel incredible and bad days feel awful. Like, and there seems to be no in between. The reason I'm so positive is for the reasons you just talked about in terms of, yeah, if we all do come out of here with a little more grit, if we can take the time, when you said we should be proud of it, I thought that's exactly that. We need to, whether you agree or disagree with any regulation, anything that's going on, you need to move society forward in a beneficial way.
yeah.
So, what can you do at an individual level? What can you do within your communities? What can you do? It's I think about Kennedy. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. But genuinely ask that of yourself. Think global, act local. Like there's all these little acronyms, all these nuances, junk
Mm,
in a sense that we can throw around. And for me, my end motivation is I bought a 6 pack of Zevias today because my last thought was if I get run over by a car tomorrow, I'm gonna be pretty pissed off I didn't get a chance to have one of these tonight. So it's not always a great mentality to take toward things, but it's how I think because I also think, yeah, like I don't have the same things that I used to look forward to. That doesn't mean I don't have things to look forward to.
yeah.
Same thing. I thought about my CFP. My first thought when this happened, well, just drag it out. I got all the time in the world to work on it. Then my second thought was, why not be ahead of the game so that,
Yeah.
yes, when they do open the doors back up, we start seeing people, greater wealth comes back into the general masses, that I have the ability to help people. I have the ability to further my career. I have the ability to be better. It's like when I got on my bike this morning, man. It sucks outside. I don't like when it's cloudy because the city doesn't look as nice. I don't like when it's cold because I had underwear, bib, which is like a little almost like a hockey style with the suspenders and the shorts, wool socks on, had a base
Jeez.
layer and then the jersey and then like my full McEwen jacket, neck warmer, toque on underneath the helmet.
Yeah,
Like where's
summer's gone. See you later.
people are looking at me thinking, where's this guy going? This guy heading up north on his bike because he sure is dressed like it. And
But
there's nobody out there.
it's just because that's your routine. You did it last week. It's just like now you're just dressing
See,
different,
and that's what it is for me.
right?
I need to be ahead of where I was. You just need to be better than who you were yesterday. And it's
Yeah.
not that to say that 7 days a week you're trying to, yeah, I got to be better. Because some days you just need a Sunday where you do nothing. You have ice cream for lunch, you have cereal for dinner. You don't care, right? Like
Why
you're like, I'm
not?
not going for a walk. I'm watching football, and people are gonna leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah.
Everyone has those days, but yes, for me, extremely positive. But it's perspective, the recognition of, okay, I can't do what I was doing before, but what I can do is separate the emotions, the routines, and the lifestyle that I had before that kept me at a certain level of mental and physical happiness, and adapt that into now, to the point where, yeah, you're going to have to get outside when it's 9 degrees, get on your bike, one, because in 2 months, you're not going to be biking in November, and the gyms aren't quite open the way you want it to be open. So you just have to find a way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Live and adapt, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, I think the same thing. I think I said a similar thing to you when we were at the range. I said, if you just get up and just do one thing,
Yes.
one
That is what
thing,
you said.
right? And you did that every day, like,
Things start to
I
seem
know.
easier. Things are in order.
Yeah, when I was first starting my new job, it was like, okay, I already have in my mind, I have this many years until my next goal where I want to get to my next position. And you jump in that day and you're like, okay, I have to learn all this stuff so that I can get to that position. And then you realize that no, like all I have to do is learn one new task,
Yes.
understand one new thing about my company, develop one relationship with a
Yes.
client, a sub trade, and it's like your day could be complete shit, right? And if you just did that one thing, it's like, okay, well,
It's one more brick.
at least I learned that, right? Because it's like you start thinking a lot smaller instead of like the big picture.
Yes.
Because I
Yes.
have bigger goals,
Yes.
but if all I do is focus on that bigger goal, like I'm never gonna get there, right?
That's sorry. I almost had a flashback because I just watched a video the other day from Jordan Peterson where he talked about set the bar reasonably low and set it often so that you go, okay. But that's exactly what he said. If you show somebody a mountain and they're standing there at the base and you say, climb that, you go, nope, that ain't happening. But if I tell you, if I tell you in 6 months, I'm going to need you to be able to climb that, then you can go, okay, well, I got to work on my cardio. I got to research weather conditions. I got to figure out, safety procedures. Yeah, that's exactly it. If you can just lay one brick to that foundation, all of a sudden, 6 months later when you're there and you're looking like a Sherpa and that guy's going, oh, yeah, this guy's going to get up the mountain, no problem. Versus saying, okay, go and do it. And then you just panic and try and do it and run straight up the mountain.
Well, and just realize that everybody around you isn't thinking the way that you're thinking.
Yes.
Like, even though I'm thinking, oh man, I got so much to learn, or my boss just asked me to do this and I don't know how to do it, right? Like, how am I going to get to that next stage? Like, if I don't know how to do this, right? They're not thinking that. They're like, hey, this guy's like 2 months in. He seems to be doing pretty well. Like, he's doing everything I'm asking him to, and he asks questions. That's all they think about.
Yeah.
But once a day, I might actually take myself back and go, oh, right, yeah, they're not probably thinking that way. And they are probably happy with what I'm doing. Otherwise, they'd probably be telling me that I'm not doing a good job.
Yes.
Right? And then you just got to take that pressure off. Yeah, you got to take the pressure off you. Because we put so much pressure on ourselves. It's insane.
It is. And
Yeah.
especially with people who are in senior roles or who know more than you do on some subject, they've been where you're at, right?
Yeah.
And if you can recognize, oh, that's just an older version, whether or not you like that person or you do, this is an older version of where I see myself, or, I can see a lot of the things this guy's doing. He's already been through this. He may not know the
Mhm.
technology as well, or some of the language that has entered in the past 5 to 10 years, or some of the things that have changed, or he might. That's why he's the expert or she's the expert. Yet and this ties into everything we've been talking about. It's just recognizing that we're all going through something. We're all trying to get better at something. And if we can approach that in general with everybody, everybody's going to be approachable. Everybody's going to get better.
Uh,
Slowly things will change. And then nobody will feel like they're being left out or left behind.
Push people up, right? So tear them down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Although some people
I
are pure
agree.
evil, but no, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
This is my right field question of the day. There's not a segment called that, but I was trying to find a way to segue you into a little ancient history.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Oh
oh
yeah.
yeah. I mean, I had to. You brought it up. It's
Twist
kind of
my
the one.
arm. Yeah.
um, First of all, you got any favorite civilizations or some civilizations you've been thinking about lately, given these times?
Uh, I'm a huge ancient Mayan
Ancient
history
Mayan.
buff. Yeah. I
And what do you
uh,
think? What do you think they'd tell us right now?
I don't know. We probably need to throw somebody into a cenote or something like that. Yeah.
Is that a sacrificing?
I,
Is that what that is?
well, we say it was sacrificing, but I don't know. I think they just thought it was just a way to get to a different place of the world, right?
Yes.
Like everything that we're doing now, like they were doing some of it. Like they were planning. They were just sitting around
Yeah.
doing nothing. Like they built these amazing things, right? And we say that they were, not even close to the technology advancements that we have. And I don't know. It's really interesting stuff. Like if you ever want to like read up on them or watch some shows, like there's some cool stuff on ancient history. Obviously, my side is always the architecture,
Yes.
right? All the structural engineering. You look at what they built, and it doesn't matter who you are. Like if you think that like primitive beings were just doing this for the last 10,000 years, like you're
You're out of your mind.
insane, right?
That is the general
I
consensus.
honestly think that like you're insane if you think that. Like it's way more likely that a civilization got to a point, maybe not where we are now, but got pretty high and then they went
Yes.
through a catastrophe, right? But it just
It
when do you make the decision that we're gonna pick the one material that never erodes and we're gonna build all that? Right?
it's
Like
true.
who makes
It's
that decision? Because we don't.
well, I mean,
We're what we say are the smartest that we've ever been, but we don't build all that stuff because we don't worry about not being around tomorrow.
yes.
So at what point were they like, "Hey, I want this to last forever. What's the only thing that lasts? Stone, granite." So then they build all that. So what's still around? Stone,
Yes.
granite. So they knew something, right? So I
Which
think
is
there's a lot that we can still learn from what they did.
oh, absolutely.
Whether they had our electronical like technical advancements, probably not, but they
But it's also
understood a
hard to say
lot.
though, because it is those things, like all the structures are still there, but I thought about this, and you'll probably be able to speak to this. So hieroglyphs, if we kind of go to the ancient Egyptians,
Yeah.
hieroglyphs may be for them where I draw one parallel, and this is first of all, I should quick disclaimer, not an expert, barely know history, but love to connect dots that aren't there. One of my
Let's
favorite
do it.
things to do.
Well, I'll try to help you out. Yeah.
Okay, ancient hieroglyphs, right?
Yeah.
If you look at them without having any prior knowledge or understanding, essentially what it is, they're photos, correct?
Yeah.
Or symbols, I should say. And each symbol represents to the general public an understood meaning of each symbol. Now you put those together in some form, whether that be top to bottom, left to right, right to left, bottom to top. it's intended to communicate. It's one thing that we agree on that every civilization has tried to do is communicate.
Yeah.
How are we to say that, oh yeah, same thing with the pyramids in Egypt, where they go, okay, we're pretty convinced this wasn't slaves just walking these up for exactly that 10,000 years, and all of a sudden they said, perfect, like we nailed it. There seems to be a general consensus, even among the educated, that that's exactly it. Either the civilization hit a point where it completely peaked, or they did exactly that. They were thinking in a way, okay, what's going to be here forever? What can we give to the world? What can we show? And I look at those hieroglyphs and I go, how far away is a hieroglyph from an emoji? Because the amount of emojis that have come into time and place, or reactions on Facebook, you no longer can just like something. You can care for something, or you can love something, or you can shed a tear for something, or you can for something, right? And for those listening at home, that's the scrunchy laughing something is totally hilarious face, which gets abused just like LOL did, to the point where nobody's ever laughed out loud when they send you an LOL. Yet you look at the ancient Egyptians and you go, well, they were sophisticated, they were brilliant, they're trying to tell us something. And then I look at my phone and I think, they're emojis. These guys are idiots. Like, they should have almost kept a sophisticated language and we could have figured it out.
Yeah.
But no, sorry, go ahead.
Is it possible that they understood that who was going to come next had to start back at the beginning?
Exactly.
So what's the easiest way to try to get something across to somebody?
Which
Pictures, diagrams.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Like that. So
which is hilarious though, but we don't understand them as well as we should, is what I'm saying. It's
no,
like,
we don't.
It's almost like we said, okay, well, we want them to understand this in a grade 1 form, or like a kindergarten form, so that when the Luke Browns and Alexander Phillips are alive in 2020, 8 years after the Mayans, potentially predicted, although I imagine they just ran out of space on the calendar. But either way, they thought, yeah, we'll give them the information for free, and we'll give it to them in a very simple look. And yet we still haven't figured out what everything means that we're sure of, like entirely sure of, that we can explain everything to a T and say this is exactly how they built the pyramids, which is a big ask. I mean, I'm not, again, just a guy ask questions behind the microphone.
So to go into the construction side of it.
Yes.
To lift the stone that they're lifting is not an easy task, like at all. Like, it doesn't matter how many slaves you have. For example, our crane on our site, it can lift 36,000 pounds, meaning 18 tons. That's max. That's one thing that they're lifting that they can move and drop down, right? There are stones that are like 6 tons, 10 tons, 20 tons, and they stacked them.
Perfectly, so like, not to mention.
Yeah, perfectly. So you got to think that the hardest part is like getting it just up off the ground enough, because when you're like deadlifting something, like, you got to get your fingers underneath it, right? Wedged underneath.
No, man, it just took 4 strong Egyptians and they lifted it.
Like, how many people like would have to be underneath that stone first in order to actually like start moving it somewhere?
Any leverage in any direction,
right? So sure, maybe they had some pulleys or whatever that they were using. Who knows? Like, that's what we say. Just thousands of slaves built that. It's like, like, I don't know, man. Like,
unless they're carrying a pet rock up every time.
And they understood structural engineering just as much as we do, right? They put lintels over doorways to carry the load. Like, they knew a lot, right? And not only that, but they built it perfectly somewhere on the world that it lines up north, south, east, west, to the stars, to the calendar, to the seasons, the equinox, the solstices. Like, it takes thousands of years to figure all that out, find that spot, and say, okay, here, we're going to build it. They say the lifespans were, what, 30 years?
Maybe.
So how do you commit the other generation below you to keep carrying out that task, right?
With like, no promise of a long life or any anything.
Honestly, it blows my mind, right? And how much they knew, like the Mayans, one of the first civilizations that came up with zero. That was a pretty important part of
Yes.
like society. They didn't know how to give something the value of zero,
Tough to have
right?
a
They
barometer
had one of
without
the
a.
first writing systems where they actually
Yep.
wrote on paper, not just etched into stone.
Yes.
They had the first calendar, one of the first calendars, right? It for me, it helps me step back and realize like we are always moving forward.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
as like they advanced at a crazy rate for whatever it was at their time, and we're advancing at a crazy rate. And it's never gonna stop. So you just
No.
gotta
No.
you gotta just jump in, enjoy the ride, right?
You do. You do. No, and
But
that's where I talked about on a different show about I think what people need to realize is everybody seems to want to be mindful and or aware and create or strike some sort of balance in their life that keeps them at least foundationally within some sort of artificial or arbitrary high and low where you can operate with a certain amount of reasonability in your life. And to deny that the world is changing exponentially is insane. We see it every day. Self-driving cars. I didn't think we'd have those for another 10 years, despite knowing nothing about them. And now, like I'm reading this book talking about the technology in them and how they essentially are just consuming data at such an exponential rate and a rate where they can identify with incredible predictability, how far ahead the car in front of them is, what type of car it is, how fast the car is traveling, what's on your outside, what's on your inside, the length of the light coming up, the speed limits, all of these things instantaneously to the point where all we have to do as humans is go, you just pull our hands away from the steering wheel and watch your Tesla drive you down a highway at 90 kilometers an hour.
blows my mind, man.
And
Blows
that
my mind.
anxiety that you feel, not even being in the car, just thinking about it, is the ride. You have to be able to jump in a little bit. You don't have to go out and buy a self-driving car, but it's exactly that. The world's going to move forward despite COVID, despite mass killings, despite genocide, despite all of these things. The world is going to keep finding a way to move forward.
Yeah, I agree, man. And
so this is, sorry,
dude, take your time. Learn something about like some ancient history.
Yes.
Learn something about geography, mathematics, whatever, finance. Like if you want to go and learn something, like just go and do it. Like
we have the world at our fingertips.
Definitely find out what you're interested in.
Yes.
Like I didn't really start getting interested in all of it until like 3-4 years ago. And I just dove like head first, like straight in.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'd have said you'd been reading about it since you were a teenager, the way you talked about it last week.
Well, I've consumed a lot of it, I guess. So,
but I agree. I mean, I didn't think people read for fun. Well, that's not true. I knew people read for fun. I got out of school. I didn't read a thing for like a good 2 or 3 months because I didn't want to learn any more than I already did. And then I picked up a book, and all of a sudden, one book became 2 books, became 4 books. All of a sudden, I was reading like a book a month. And it was exactly that. It was like, go read a business book, go read a history book, go read a literature book, go expand your, I can't remember what you said earlier in the show, but it's exactly, you have to be able to expand your opinion onto somebody else and even expand those ideas. It's the only way we learn, especially from each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Reading something and having your own viewpoint on it is, I think, huge. So, and ask questions.
Yes.
It's like, if we don't ask questions and you just, okay, someone's telling me to do this, I just believe them full-heartedly. Like, I don't know. Like,
that's a pretty benevolent way to go about life.
I don't want to go about life that way. Like,
no,
I'm going to question things. Like if something's off, you need to question things.
Yeah.
So I hope we get. Well, no, I think we do. I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that we don't question things, but I hope we don't get to a point where we stop.
Yes, or we
just completely be dominated by, be controlled.
Yes. Oh, I agree. It gets a little tinfoil hatty at times, but it is strange that we're trying to create autonomous beings, yet we're hardly autonomous ourselves some days.
Wow, that part's pretty cool too, eh? Sending like robots to other planets.
Yeah.
Do you know that we find over, I want to say 30 exoplanets every single day now?
No.
Do you know what an exoplanet is?
I can't wait to hear what it
So
is.
exo exoplanets are what we consider similar planets to Earth, right? So it
I know
has
this.
to be in this perfect radius or distance from their star,
Yes.
right? For us to believe that they would probably have the right temperatures to have water, an atmosphere, right? Some sort of land. And we find 30 of them every day now, right? So now what we're going to start doing is actually
Oh,
sending robots to these places to start gathering data on them. Like
all these years,
we're actually doing all this shit right now.
all
And
those years.
it makes you like look back and go, wait, like what would be the first thing that other like beings would do to Earth, right? Like they wouldn't come here first. You'd send something else
Yes.
before. We send probes out to like see, and now we
Which
have
is
these.
hilarious because like the nightmare is a robot species showing up out of
Yeah,
nowhere to this planet, and we're out there on
yeah.
offense trying to get to the other planets first.
But that's what I like about robotics is I think that's like the coolest part is that we're going to be able to like send something to basically set
Yeah.
up another place. Now, do I think we're like, do I actually know if we're ever going to get to a point where we chose to move off of this amazing place? Like, I don't think so.
I don't
Ultimately,
think
I don't think anything's wrong with our world and
no.
how we live on it. Like, we're doing fine. Just, and some of that comes from like the ancient history that I watch. Because you look at it and there was like 7 other different, like, Homo sapiens,
Yes.
like different versions of us that didn't make it, right?
Yep. Yep.
So, and it's gonna keep going. Even if
Well,
some
and how long
crazy
do you want to
thing
live
wiped us
anyway?
all out, like there'd probably be 100, couple thousand of us that survive and keep going. That's just realistic to assume, like
No,
because it's that's what's
e-
happened in the past, right?
but even think
So,
about like I always talk about people or talk about with people, how long do you want to live? Because it's all about how you measure your short little breath on this life. Because
mm,
if you want to, live to be 90 because you want to see everything, maybe that's your prerogative. But if you don't do anything from years 1 through 85, because your entire purpose is to try and make sure you're just healthy enough to keep living, you may not experience all the great beauties or
yeah,
wonders of this world. So it's exactly that. It's a strange place to
yeah,
be on the exoplanet thing. Just the first thing that came to my mind, you said 30 a day that we're finding. How big is the universe? Because yes,
oh,
it's
it's massive,
essentially
man.
limitless. That is the craziest thing to me is even
Yeah.
if we found 30 within our own solar system, we got to get people there. We can't even,
Yeah.
we went to the moon once
Do you know
and
what's cool though?
we've never been
They
back.
there is an exoplanet like in like Orion's belt, which is pretty cool.
It makes my head spin on such a
So
different level.
then when you look at all these buildings that were built that
Yes.
literally point directly to Orion's belt, they're just like
I'm gonna have
it's
to get
cool.
ripped
It's
one day and
cool. It's
watch a
cool shit.
documentary on exoplanets, man.
It's
I'm gonna
cool
be
shit, man.
I'm gonna be buried in my couch, just sitting there like staring up at the sky, like, man, there's 5 of me out there somewhere at least.
Yeah.
All right, well, this
Yeah.
is a perfect time. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and well,
That was
if you've
good.
listened to full episodes, you may know what's coming. Um, but my final favorite question, and it's taken on many different forms, but essentially has the same idea. If you, Luke Brown, as you are and who you are today, could advise the general public or this audience or even one person on one piece of advice or idea that you think would benefit them, what would it be? Just fuck bitches, get money. What?
Yeah. I think I don't know. You just got to see the light, the love, and the lessons in everything that you do.
Ooh, let's
No,
go.
that's not from me. That's from the this guy that I follow, and I don't know. He just always says it so perfectly. It's just everything that you do, just try to take those key points away from, right? Doesn't matter if it was a shitty experience, a good experience, learning. If you just take away light, love, lessons of what's going on around you all the time and just move on to the next thing. And I think it's just, yeah, I don't know. I don't say it as poetically as he does, but
Hey, message is still received.
yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on today, sir. It's been an absolute slice.
Yeah.
Get it.
We'll see how everybody likes my
Yeah.
ancient history stuff, but
This is
I'm a huge
perfect. I
nut
think
for it, so I hope people like it.
I had a pleasure, and you know what? At the end of the day, that's all that matters. And I think we're just going to keep learning and keep understanding these things. And as the days go by and these episodes keep coming, we'll have you on again. And
it was a blast to just get on and spew for an hour. I don't even know how long it's been. An hour and a half, hour and 15 there.
I mean, the first 45, honestly, this was one of the ones. If I didn't have things to do right away here, this is one of the ones I could have definitely went for a couple hours or so.
Yeah.
Especially once you brought up exoplanets, I was I just the thought of it, and that there's only 30, because that means for every one of those, I imagine there's thousands of planets we have found that aren't livable, which is just
billions. Yeah.
Again, never just ending. Starts. Somebody told me once that if you put a pea and a potato on the table, eventually the potato would make the pea roll. Like, it was perfectly round in a frictionless universe because the gravity of the potato would slowly draw it in. And I was like, everything is gravity. It's insane. That big just to have this much gravity. Anyway, that's for another time.
Awesome. I love it.
Stick around. Show here. Gonna hit stop recording. And thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.